Part 7, Input and GUI Interaction. Okay, in the start method of MonoBehavior that we've implemented, we want to hide the default cursor because we have a mouse overlay that we're going to show instead. Okay, and in our onGUI event, each frame, we want to detect if any of Unity GUI elements have captured our mouse input. If it has, we want to skip the paint event because we don't want to paint when we click a button. Also, if we click any of the Unity GUI elements, we want to show the cursor. Otherwise, we'll just hide it again, capture the intercept event, and then handle it in the update method. In our GUI interaction region, we'll prepare the Unity GUI. First, we want to do some error checking because we're going to interact with the brush textures, the brush material, and the brush overlay, just in case the meta references haven't initialized by the time the GUI event occurs. We just want to exit out. All our GUI elements will start left justified, indented a little bit. But button textures for the alpha brushes will be a certain size, brush size. We'll have padding between each texture. We'll use X and Y to place each GUI element. Okay, we want to cycle through each of the alpha brushes. We'll show it on a button. As we iterate each button, we'll add a little padding. If that button is clicked, we want to assign the texture to the brush material. Okay, we'll have a button to clear the canvas. It'll set every pixel on the canvas back to transparent. It gets the texture from the canvas material. That's the canvas texture. We error check if it's not null. We get the pixels. We set the pixels to transparent, and we assign the pixels back to the texture, and then we apply the changes. Okay, now we add a toggle for paint mode to toggle between paint and erase. If you decide to add another enum state, it will cycle between the possible states. It uses a modulus. And it just alternates between 0 and 1. We could use the bool, but typically there's usually more than 2 paint modes. We add sliders for red, green, and blue. Each one of these is a label followed by a horizontal slider, another label that slightly formats the value. Okay, on to the next line. We drop below the button texture. Plus a little padding. Alright, now we have sliders for the brush size and the brush overlay. The brush size isn't any different than the other sliders. The brush opacity is slightly different because we're modifying the brush color and we're using a little bit tricky syntax. If we drop the opacity below 25%, you might not be able to see the brush overlay, so we're capping it at 25%. When the color changes, we're setting the brush material color. Okay, next line. We want to list the names of each color. Since we don't have a color picker, we have a list of names followed by RGB values. So if you click the name, it will set the RGB value. We're setting the RGB channels, not the alpha channel. The alpha channel is controlled by the opacity slider. Our brush size slider will alter the scale of the brush overlay. We only modify the X and Z. The scale of the X and Z. brush overlay plane. We should be able to see our changes at this point. After Unity compiles, we get some warnings about the update event. We haven't added that logic yet. And now, if we maximize on play so we can see the entire canvas, you can see we can switch between the different alpha brushes. We can toggle the paint style. The RGB sliders are functional. The colors are functional. And you can tweak the colors with the RGB sliders. Next up, resolution, web player setup, and the final painting logic.